I'd like to welcome everybody to the May 5th special meeting of the Marlborough Township Board of Education. Cindy, would you please call the roll? Everybody please make sure your microphones are on.
I'm on.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Mrs. Dean? Here. Mrs. Ennie? Here. Mr. Marshall?
Here.
Mrs. Matos? Here. Mr. Lalonsky?
Here. Please be advised this meeting is being held in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, the Sunshine Law. The adequate notice of date, time, and agenda is sent to Asbury Park Press and News Transcript, also been posted and filed with the Marlborough Township Clerk. Copies have also been sent to each district school and other area newspapers in accordance with the law. I'm going to draw your attention to, but I'm not going to read its entirety, statement of videotaping a public portion of education, a Board of Education meetings, a public session statement, as well as no smoking on school grounds. Everybody please rise and join me for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to announce and thank Tara Gostapis, the MD, who's our district's Emerald Level sponsor for 2014-2015 school year. Communication, sir?
None, sir.
One thing I have is the board did receive a letter from Mrs. Rosenwald, an email, that I asked you to attach that to the minutes, please.
Oh, good, thank you.
Okay, thank you. You got no further communications. Okay, public session. Public session open to any item. I'm going to ask everybody to please maintain it to 5 minutes per person. We have a 60 minutes total time limit for public session. We have no names on the clipboard, I guess. I didn't see anybody sign it.
Clipboard's right there.
Anyway. Just need name and address, sir.
Rob, do me a favor. Go get my iPad in the office, please.
Okay. Good evening. Mark Rosenwald, the carriage driver. Good evening, Mr. Lalonsky, board members, Dr. Hibbs. And
Paul Green.
Mr. Green. At the last meeting, pay attention please, Mrs. Dean. At the last meeting, Mrs. Dean made some statements, and that at the last meeting, Mrs. Dean made some statements that she was not prepared for the meeting, and she said, quote, thank you. She said, quote, I didn't get to read this. I would rather not vote on a policy or regulation that I have not read. I am not ready to vote on this, so I'm going to abstain. So rather than abstaining and not telling the public why I am abstaining, I'm going to tell you I'd rather have it pulled, unquote. Now, I find it very ironic that you use the excuse of abstaining because you're not giving the public a reason. But in a prior question about another vote, you refuse to give an answer, you and Mr. Marshall, and you don't have to turn your back, Mr. Marshall. I know you don't like me.
Well, I focus better when I don't have to look at
There's
it.
no back and forth, correct?
Sorry.
And you sat there, both of you, mute, and you feigned disinterest. How hypocritical. One can only come to the conclusion that you and Mr. Marshall's actions are based purely on partisan politics. And it's incredible that you actually are proud that you negotiated the single highest salary and benefit increase in the Marlborough School's history. And in order to sustain it, the public is now forced to pay well over and above the statutory maximum tax levy cap, and will go deeply into banked cap. Yes, Mrs. Matos, it's now sustainable until the next contract that you negotiate. A friend of mine characterized the board as spending like drunken sailors. So much for wringing your hands and bemoaning tax dollars. Something you may not be aware of, I know the attorney is, I know Cindy is, and Dr. Hibbs is. The health care costs and any increases are outside the cap. And the district will definitely be assessed the 40% tax under Obamacare because of the generous contracts that you have given. And that money will only be piled on top of the budget outside the cap, and the people will not know the difference. A few meetings ago, Mrs. Toland remarked that Mrs. Dean, quote, was the only one who helped us. Precisely what did Mrs. Dean do to help her?
Bye.
Okay. I'm sorry?
Oh, she has how many minutes?
I just have 2 minutes more. Mrs. Matos said at the last meeting, I'm honestly disturbed that there was a baby at the interview process. I think I would have preferred, as a board member, I would like to see in the future, if a child cannot take care of himself out in the lobby during the process, I'm sure you would agree you would rather her not be here with the baby. I think we should not do that in the future. I think in keeping with that, any future meeting with a teacher, with a child study team, with an administrator, or the supervisor, you should take the same approach, and children should not be permitted. Okay, one other quick thing. Your business is very heavily regulated. We all know that. You've mentioned it. It's regulated on the federal level and the state level. You don't go to the Elizabeth Town Council meeting at every meeting and bemoan the federal or state regulations. But yet we have some people here who at every meeting, and I understand Bessler and Renna and everything else involved with that, they come and they talk about it and talk about it. It's the same as you going to the Elizabeth meeting. You have no control over it. You have no control over curriculum, what's handed down. The superintendent, Dr. Hibbs, has stated that they call him every day. They take up his time. Dr. Hibbs is the highest compensated employee with the Marlborough School District and in all of Marlborough.
Got to finish up.
Okay. It's a waste of his time.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else in the public wish to
Thank
address
you.
the board on any item? Okay. Seeing none, we'll close public session. Referendum discussion. You actually want to answer it now.
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Rosenwald, the only thing I want to clarify is I definitely don't spend a lot of my time dealing with park. I'm assuming you're talking about park stuff. I really don't. There's not a lot of phone calls that come in. Now, we had to deal with other logistics on the refusals or the opt-outs or name it what you will, but it's really not a lot of my time that is taken away. Just wanted to clarify for you as an honest answer.
Okay, thank you. Referendum discussion, sir.
Okay. Sin, you want to introduce?
Yes, ladies, if you would, please. Come on up to the hot seat. If you would, please. Thank you. Uh-oh, here we go again.
They do what they need to do.
Like about here? Okay.
Andrea Khan, Robbie Akampora. Andrea is from McManaman, Scotland, and Bauman.
Very good.
And Robbie Akampora is from Phoenix Advisors, bond counsel and financial advisors.
Hello. Good evening. I'll begin. I understand that what we wanted to do is start with a rundown on the process for the authorization. And of course, it's a process that you've already begun. The longest period of time that goes into the planning, I usually say in the first line, I thought we were just one step ahead of where we are right now. The longest period of time is the planning process, which you've been engaged in. And then you would adopt a resolution, which I've also understand that you do, to submit an application to the State Department of Education. The State Department of Education will review that application, and it requires a number of things. Number one is approval of the project. The other is to approve any required amendment to the long-range facilities plan. The State Department of Ed will review the application and the project for consistency with the Long-Range Facilities Plan, but also determine which of the costs are eligible for funding. And as a result, following that review, they'll issue what we call a PEC letter, or a preliminary eligible cost letter. You then have 30 days to examine it. Technically, you have a right to appeal their determination, but the reality is that even if you were to win an appeal, the increase of the eligible costs cannot exceed more than 10%, and it often will take you out of your timeline. So we really honestly have never seen a true appeal. Where we find errors or inconsistencies, you point them out. That's not an appeal. An appeal is where you're really asking them to change things. Once the 30 days passes, the state will now approve a final eligible cost letter, and we need to get that final eligible cost letter before referendum. The bond proposals can be approved at one of 4 special election dates or at your annual election date. If you're going forward at a special election date, we have to give notice to the county authorities, the county clerk, and the county superintendent of elections and other election officials 60 days prior to the special election date, and we have to give that notice in writing. We're only required to give them the actual form of the bond proposal on the 18th, by 10 o'clock in the morning, 18 days ahead of the special election date. However, if you were to be at an annual election, we have to give them that proposal 60 days because the ballots are so much more complicated for the annual election dates. Those are the basic time frames for getting everything done. The county runs the elections these days. I do have some additional dates in the timeline just to give some perspective as to what their timing requirements are, because they have to take a whole lot of steps, including possibly translating ballots and arranging for various notices. So I keep them in the timeline just so that we're aware of what their needs are and can keep in communication with them. But that is the primary process. Now, the bond proposal itself, I have to tell you, is ugly. The state requires that we keep that we put certain language in there. The intent of it had been for transparency so that the public would understand it. Unfortunately, it's a little confusing, so it may defeat the purpose. We try to address that by means of public information that we provide so that people will understand that ballot before they actually go to vote. We're required to put in there the determination of the state as to what the eligible costs of funding are. And with respect to a project that's eligible for debt service aid, in that particular case, you issue bonds for all of it, and the state will give you aid equivalent to their percentage of the eligible costs. And we have to put language with respect to that in the form of the question itself. Perhaps you'd like to add something?
Once the state gives you your eligible costs, I will do the tax impact for the district. I know the district has some debt coming off in the next few years, so we're going to do our best to try and ease in the tax impact or wrap it around your existing debt. The state used to be more flexible with allowing you to, what we used to call backload the debt, have the new debt paid when the old debt is paid off, but they're not as flexible anymore. So I think you have a decrease between 2017 and 18, and then 2 years later it actually all goes away. So we're going to do our best to ease in the tax impact once we get the eligible cost numbers, and we'll be doing projections for you then. Any questions?
Anybody?
I think the thing is the target date is to adopt the question on July 28th. And then we'll deliver it over to the county office on July 29th, because the date is, for the referendum, is September 29th, so that's the 60-day window.
Okay.
So we definitely need to make a decision, if you wish to hold the special election on that date, to give them the notice 60 days ahead of time. And it's really best to be able to give them the form of the bond proposal at that time as well, for a number of reasons. It gives them time to do all the things that they have to do the publications, the translations, etc. It also gives you the time you need to do to acquaint the public with the project and the form of the ballot.
Okay, and I asked Cindy at the last meeting, is there anything the board was doing at this point to hold it up, and was told no, so are we still good, and nothing that we need to do, we'll take action on it at this point?
We're fine right now, with the exception of, we need help.
Yes. So what I would like to do, Ted has recommended a PR representative that he's worked with in the past to help us get the word out and do all the things that we need to do so that we have our best chance of having this referendum pass. I would like to bring her before you so she could talk about what she could offer, what she could bring to the table. I think she's a very nice person, very capable. But I would like you to hear what she can offer so that you could decide what services you would need. I think we do need some help, 100%.
Is there, I mean, I know he's recommending somebody, are we gonna have it compared to somebody else as far as price-wise, or is just the person they bring, that's who we're gonna take? Nothing against who Ted's recommending, I'm just saying, you know, as far as, you know, you just take the first person that comes, that's the price you get, but if you compare as far as price-wise, because I know they can be costly.
Sure. We asked Ted for some recommendations.
I can reach out to the other name that he gave us and see what their price is. Her pricing and the other, it's whatever you want. It's the McDonald's menu.
Is it a la carte, or is it?
Yes.
Yeah. You want this piece of the pie, you know, do you want your hamburger with cheese? Do you want it with
Yeah.
ketchup? Do you want it, you know, what do you want? You know, you can have this much, you can have that much, you know, so.
Just so you understand a basic ballpark, right around $16,000 was where the first person brought in. We'll be happy to reach out to the second person.
Yeah,
We can bring
absolutely.
two people to you if you want to hear them. Happy to do that. I don't think in going for a very large referendum that $16,000 is unreasonable, coupled with the fact that we physically can't do what they're going to do. They're going to help us with social media, help us with press releases, help us with key communicators, help us with presentations. They're really going to be, essentially, they're going to be a campaign manager for the Abbott referendum, which is what we need. We need to have good publicity out there, getting good word out there. It's
To Vicky's point, I think it's good to see at least two
Absolutely.
people.
Well, I remember there was a really good one from the conference last year that did Point Pleasant, or Point Pleasant Beach. Remember they had.
I can reach out to Steve and see who did it.
She was, I don't know her, I just know she did a really
Do you have
good
your,
presentation.
do you have your, it might be the same person.
Might be, I could
Do you have your
look.
paperwork from down there?
I have some stuff, yeah. I think I kept that.
Can you look at it
I
and see who
will.
it was?
I will, because I think I kept a card. I'll look when I go.
Yeah, if you do, just email it to me.
Okay.
a couple for people to come see you, and that way you can make a
Yep.
choice.
Sounds good. Everybody okay with that? That's correct.
Just a question, who actually spearheads that process with that individual, whomever it is is that you, Cindy, or you, Dr. Hibbs?
Both of us.
Yeah. So what'll happen is that she will sit down, or the candidate will sit down with you as well, and lay out a full map of all the things that we're going to do. And then I work, and Cindy works with them to deploy, and then board members as well.
Right, but
You
on
know?
a daily basis, it's, okay.
Yeah. So like going to the PTA meetings, the coffee clutches, I'll be knocking on doors, not really, but you know.
You'll
what I
be
mean.
doing more of that than me.
Yeah.
I got enough to do in this end of stuff.
Yeah. Absolutely. So we will
Plus
we will line up a
federal
few for you to see. That's okay?
Sounds good to me.
Excellent.
Good.
Okay. I really don't, is there anything else I'm missing?
Nope, you did
Regard-
good.
Okay. Good? Ladies, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very nice to meet you
Working
both.
with
Absolutely. Very nice to meet you. Andrea and Robbie, right? Stay off of 520.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, organizational matters, we have 23 resolutions from pages 3 to 12. There's no change or anything, those in the other?
No, not on that. I have changes under personnel, so.
Vicky, you want to start off? Page 3.
Thank you.
Organization matters, Superintendent of Schools submits the following resolutions for approval. 1, Board Secretary. 2, Board Attorney. 3, Board Auditor. 4, School Physician. 5, Insurance Consultant. 6, Insurance Agent. 7, Board Designee. 8, Public Agency Compliance Officer. 9, District Section 504 Coordinator. 10, Section 504 Coordinator for Program Accessibility. 11, Attendance Officer. 12, Affirmative Action Officer, School and Classroom Practices. 13, Affirmative Action Officer, Employment Practices. 14, Approval of Qualified Purchasing Agent for bidding, purchasing, and sale of property. 15, Procurement of Goods and Services through State Agency for the 2015-16 school year. 16, Purchased Professional Services. 17, Right to Know. 18, Designation of Legal Newspaper. 19, Meeting Schedule. 20, Committee of the Whole and Regular Public Meeting Dates. 21, Form of Agenda, Workshop Meeting. 22, Form of Agenda, Regular Meeting. 23, Tax, Sheltered Communities. I so move.
Thank you, Victoria. Seconded by Debbie. Any discussion on organizational matters?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
Cindy, just for the public so they'll know, I know we went up, you explained to us, but we went up, the school physician went up 3%. Is this a contract thing, or is that her reasonings why she went up it was minimal, $300. But Dr. Yee,
Yes.
it was just
Yeah, we haven't,
her asking this year?
yeah, we haven't gone up much with her at all, and she does provide a valuable asset to us. She is there whenever, and she only went up 2%, so we felt that was fair.
So I remember we started her at 15, and then it went to 500 like 2 years later, and now this is her third year?
No,
Fourth
for
year?
the fifth year.
Fifth
Yeah,
year?
she's been with us for a while.
And then the same for the board auditor, that was a part of the contract?
That was part of the bid.
And the attorneys, the same thing?
No, Mark was not a bid. He had just asked us that because he came in a little bit lower and then has asked us to increase the price, so we had all agreed. You all agreed to.
If he's going to be coming to the meetings, is there to put, we don't know how long he's going to attend the meetings, should we have asked for a retainer for him for
Not,
that?
him and I, we're going to look at it and see what works for both. That's what we had agreed upon, that over the next couple months, we're going to look and see what works best.
Okay. And when you say what works best, what do you mean by that?
No, what works best for the district.
Oh, okay.
If it's better for us, because at some point, he might stop coming, and then we're paying a retainer,
Okay.
and what are we going to get from that?
Gotcha.
So,
Sure they would refund accordingly?
Sure. Right, Paul, refund accordingly?
We actually, with that bill, we can only bill for services rendered. So on the retainer, if we're not here, we couldn't charge the retainer, but it gets complicated.
That's all I have.
Anybody else on organizational? Cindy, please call the roll.
Mrs. Ennie?
Yes.
Mr. Marshall?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mrs. Matos?
Yes.
Mr. Lawonsky?
Yes. Financial and business, 13 resolutions, pages 13 to 18. Any updates, changes, or?
Let me see. I don't think so. No, mine are all in personnel now. I'm fine.
Good? Debbie, please.
Financial and business operations matters. The superintendent of schools submits the following resolutions for approval. Number 1, authorized signatures. 2, uniform minimum chart of accounts. 3, tax levy. 4, before-after school care program. 5, renewal of contract, educational data services for purchasing procedures for the 2016-17 school year. 6, agreement with Search Day Program. 7, approval of contract with Search Day Program for behavioral consulting services to the autism program. 8, Strauss Esme Associates. 9, reaffirmation of the 2015-16 school year kindergarten complement program at the David Abbott Early Learning Center. 10, reaffirmation of team teaching integrated preschool tuition. 11, approval of 8 agreements with Middlesex Regional Educational Services Commission. 12, approval of agreement with Middlesex Regional Educational Services Commission for participation in coordinated transportation services. 13, approval of contract. I so move.
Thank you, Debbie. Seconded by? Correct. Discussion on financial and business. Correct.
Just a question on number 3, the tax levy. That's, we request that from the township.
Yep.
And is that pretty timely in terms of the payments that we get that? Is that kind of like an automatic thing?
I tell them those dates, and that's when I get it.
But you do get it?
Oh, on time, every time.
All right, good.
Yes. We actually used to do it a different way, and now what we've done is we've timed it and changed it to it ties when they collect their money,
Right.
so it comes in exactly. So it matches when their big collections come in. So it's worked very well for us.
Since you changed it, because before that, they weren't always on time.
Yeah, I kind of straggled it sometimes, so
That's why I was looking at the dates and just saying, okay, did that really make a difference? So I'm glad it did.
it did, very much.
I just wanted to know on agendas 6 and 7, I know the Search Day program is for the autistic program. Did we always have the satellite?
We've had it for the last 5-6 years
And it's
at least.
working well.
Oh, it's phenomenal.
Okay.
I will tell you that is a model program for the state and how well that works.
Absolutely.
I know the program was in use. I wasn't 100% sure on how much we're using the satellite part of it. So
Oh,
I'm
it's
glad to
great.
hear.
Cindy, on the stress estimate, I know there was an increase and included like logins and things of that nature and updates, additional updates. How many logins do we get? Like, who gets to log in and how does that work?
So, sorry, we have 15 at that price. And we can purchase additional, but with the 15, we were able to give a login to every principal, our superintendent, business administrator, myself, our directors of special education.
Are they 15 at a time? Or 15 separate, are they 15 at any one given time? In other words, is it how many can access at once or just
All 15.
15?
Yeah, they're individual.
So so what does the board use to log in?
You have access to the regular public access online feature. The big difference in what we have at that administrative level is we have access to case law and code and statute. So it's a huge time saver. And instead of having to research the big thick code book or make cover your ears, Mr. Green, make an expensive call to the solicitor, we can access statute and code and case law just on a click.
So we can't. Board members can't.
As of right now, you cannot. No. I mean, does it mean we couldn't purchase additional logins? We sure could. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, maybe one login.
Yeah,
I
what
don't
do-
know, like 9 of us don't have to log in at once. Maybe one login that we could use as a board member login.
It's easy peasy.
Especially if you're on the ball.
Yeah.
You know?
I was trying to look through that thick book, and
It's not a problem.
Okay.
It'll give you access to 18A, give you access to 6A. You'll have access to the alerts
not that I want to
are on
purchase,
there.
because if we have 15, like you were saying, we're not all
18.
going to, 18, we're not going to all log in at the same time.
No, but look, if you want one generic board login, if that's all you want, I mean, there's no
Yeah.
reason why you couldn't get 3 or 4 too. I mean, do you know how much it was per extra?
$95.
So, I mean, you could get one for everybody if you, it's really not that big a deal. Just tell us what you want. Do you want to see it on the 26th, and I'll show you, and you can make a judgment as to whether or not. It's real
Log in,
simple.
We'll look at it.
We can pull it up right on the screen, give you a little
Sure.
go around.
Thanks.
Good.
That's
Can you make
good.
sure that ends up on the agenda,
Yeah.
Mr. Vaughn?
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody else on financial and business? Seeing none, Cindy, please call the roll.
Mrs. Dean,
Yes.
Mrs. Ennie,
Yes.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Mrs. Matos,
Yes.
Mr. Delansky.
Yes. Page 19, one resolution on curriculum matters. Dara?
The superintendent of schools submits the following resolutions for approval: textbooks and curriculum guides. I so move.
Thank you, Dara. Seconded by Victoria. Any questions or comments on curriculum? Please call the roll, Cindy.
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Mrs. Matos,
Yes.
Mrs. Dean,
Yes.
Mrs. Ennie,
Yes.
Mr. Delansky.
Yes. Page 21, personnel.
Oh, I got lots there.
I was going to ask you that. That's right there.
It's really not that bad. It's just, I got 9 of them, so.
Okay, page 22. Daniel Baker. The salary should be $69,720. Bonnie Bellin, salary should be $69,720. Page 23, Andrew Bucci, $69,720. Ryan Collins, $69,720. Page 26, almost near the bottom, Thomas Herzog and Jennifer Hickey. They should both be $69,720. Page 28, Lisa Latona, $69,720.
Lisa who?
Latona. She's about a third of the way in.
Gotcha.
Page 32. Second name, Nancy Savage. Her step should be 10, and her salary should be $69,720. And then go about 3/4 of the way down, Jessica Seat. Her salary should be $69,720.
I'm sorry, which one was that?
Jessica Seat,
Okay.
Syed. Okay, sorry. Sorry, Jessica. That's it.
Thank you.
It wasn't too bad.
All right, so page 21, 21 resolutions. Pages, Craig, you're up.
Personnel matters, the superintendent of schools submits the following resolutions for approval. Number 1, retirements. 2, full-time teaching staff. 3, part-time teaching staff. 4, school psychologists. 5, certified administrators. 6, operational administrators. 7, non-aligned certificated administrators. 8, non-aligned, non-certificated administrators. Hope I'm saying that right. 9, non-aligned support staff. 10, secretarial and clerical personnel, 2015-2016 school year. 11, special education instructional assistants, 2015-2016 school year. 12, hourly rates, part-time instructional assistants. 13, school monitors, 2015-2016 school year. 14, buildings and ground staff, 2015-2016 school year. 15, head custodians, 2015-2016 school year. 16, courier, 2015-2016 school year. 17, hourly rates, bus drivers, 2015-2016 school year. 18, hourly rates, bus attendants, 2015-2016 school year. Is that it? Nope. 19, computer technicians, 2015-2016 school year. 20, computer technician 2, 2015-2016 school year. Just as a correction, number 19 was computer technicians 1. 21, district network technician, 2015-2016 school year. 22, registered nurses, 2015-2016 school year. 23, permanent floater substitute school nurses, 2015-2016 school year. 24, certified occupational therapist assistant, CODA, 2015-2016 school year. 25, unpaid leave of absence. I so move.
Thank you, Craig. Seconded by Debbie. Any discussion on personnel? Yes.
I guess, Craig, right?
Personnel, yeah.
Okay.
Either way.
I just wanted to make sure that we're not missing, I know last year, there were some non-rehires that we weren't made aware of, and I just wanted to make sure that there's nothing missing from our green notes that we should be questioning, and it's hard to question something you don't know about. Like, as far as staffing is concerned,
Not
and,
rules.
yes. Like, are there any major changes, I guess I could say, that we should be,
Major? I
Concerned
don't think there's
about-
anything
No,
major.
not this year. We're in good shape.
Yep.
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
As in last year with the family consumer science and the whole,
Right, and the
there's
Yeah,
kindergarten and,
absolutely, there was nothing,
Yeah.
nothing of that magnitude at all, aside from the normal workings of this agenda for
Okay.
a school district.
all right, thank you.
Got it.
Okay. Anybody else, personnel? Cindy, please call the roll.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mrs. Ennie?
Are you ready?
Oh, yeah, here we go.
Okay. Number 4. Okay. We'll do the abstains first.
Okay.
Number 4, abstain, Nancy Asher Schultz. Number 7, abstain, Dr. Eric Hibbs and Cindy Baragoo. Number 8, abstain, Tom Ennie. Number 11, abstain, Denise Mokes.
Number 11, did you say?
Yup, abstain, Denise Mokes. And yes for the rest.
Mr. Marshall?
Yes.
Mrs. Matos?
Yes.
Mr. Lalanski?
Yes. I think Victoria didn't vote, did she?
I did a vote.
Yeah,
Oh, I didn't. Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Now, the
So-
question becomes the personnel matters.
The individuals who did not receive 5 votes are not reappointed at this time because it takes 5 votes, a recorded roll call majority, so those will have to come before the board for approval at the next meeting.
But they're not allowed to leave early.
Contracts go through June 30th.
I thought I was going to be able to surrender and get some sleep.
What did she say?
You're not allowed to leave early.
You're not allowed to leave early.
Well. Really?
Okay. Oh, correct.
Yes, we do have a couple retirements, and I do want to just take a few seconds here to thank my department and a couple members from Cindy's department, Janine, Diana, and Cassidy, Lenore, and Chris from the business department, and Lynette Nazio. This is a huge agenda for personnel. And this is actually, believe it or not, something that we start back in December to make sure that we're ready for tonight. And there was a lot of collaboration that took place to double check all these numbers. So I really appreciate all the hard work and, as Dr. Hibbs would say, the hustle of all those ladies.
Absolutely.
I second that.
And this is really something is new here because it's the IAs that are on this that would never have gotten on here. And it really eliminates some unemployment that you're going to pay as well.
Yeah.
So,
Also, the bus drivers are on here, the secretaries are on here. We've got basically all of our staff on here. So this was huge this time. We have not done this because in the past, it was the secretaries, the bus drivers, buildings and ground staff all waited till June. This time, all of them came up,
I'm
so.
glad you did it that way.
absolutely.
It's
was-
the right way of doing that.
Yes, it
Thank you
was.
I would thank everybody taking on the extra work and getting it done.
Yeah.
'Cause
Yes.
For one big family, and that's the way to do it.
Absolutely.
It was very, very efficient, and we'll continue to improve and get better next year as well.
There you go.
All right, so, our first one tonight is Barbara Gallo. In recognizing Mrs. Barbara Gallo, the following words come immediately to mind. Teacher with the highest of expectations for her students and for herself. Mentor, leader, warm-hearted, passionate, articulate, creative, and dedicated. She has truly enriched the district and exhausted every opportunity to enrich the lives of hundreds of students. As the honors social studies teacher at Marlboro Middle for the past 17 years, Mrs. Gallo continues to challenge our brightest 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students to think outside the box, to understand history using multiple sources and resources, to investigate primary documents, and to analyze our world from a historical perspective. Her lessons are always engaging, creatively designed, and thought-provoking. Students will tell you that they have to work hard in Mrs. Gallo's class. During her tenure in Marlboro, she also served as the district mentor resource facilitator. Several times each year, she and her partner met with novice teachers and their mentors to serve as a resource for the mentoring program. She presented many training sessions and served on the committees to rewrite and update the manuals. Through her positive demeanor and knowledge, novice teachers and mentors have sought her guidance and support. Today, several years later, the program is still thriving. Mrs. Gallo also sponsored the National History Day program for many years. It first began as part of her academic instructional program and then moved to an after-school club. As a club, all students were encouraged to explore their love of history and participate in the events. Under her guidance, several students earned awards for their exhibits and presentations at the regional and state levels. It was not unusual for Mrs. Gallo to report that at least one project had been selected to go to the national level competition. Having earned great success over the years, the NHD committee selected Barbara as a program judge, and she is now a member of the regional committee. In summary, Barbara is an integral part of the middle school as well as the district school community. From excelling as a teacher to mentoring novice teachers, from serving on numerous committees to contributing to the placement process review, from chaperoning school events to giving up her lunchtime to work on NHD projects, everyone knew that you could reach out to her for support. We will miss Barbara and her daily stop in to say good morning or good night. We wish her many great years of retirement alongside her husband, daughters, and their growing families. She is now called Grandma and will soon become one more grandchild, and soon will welcome one more grandchild to the family. Thank you, Mrs. Gallo. You are the best. And since my normal trusty sidekick, Ms. Walsh is not here tonight, Mr. Ballone is going to assume her role.
The role of Ms. Walsh is played by.
Thank you. Our second comments are for Mrs. Judith Baskin. Mrs. Baskin joined the Marlborough Township School District in September of 1998 as a teacher of Spanish. Since that time, she has faithfully served the needs of our students at several schools, to include Defino, Dugan, Memorial, and Marlborough Middle School. From the onset of her teaching career, she earned the respect of her supervisors. One early thank you letter in her file was from Tom Nicola, former director of curriculum. In it, he states, quote, "Thank you for attending the board meeting. Your presence made me feel very comfortable. I knew that if there were any questions that I could not answer, you would be able to do so." As was written in several evaluations, Mrs. Baskin has continued to give our students 100%, and her classroom presence has left a lasting impression. Supervisors, through their evaluations, describe her as an educator who consistently displays exemplary teaching methods and strategies. She demonstrates general warmth, caring, and respect for her students. She diligently plans engaging lessons and has embraced the technological changes that have recently taken place throughout the district. Mrs. Baskin also served as a mentor for novice teachers and then as district mentor facilitator. She served on committees to rewrite and update the mentoring manuals and was selected as part of the first and only team of district mentor facilitators. In this role, Judy created a forum of novice teachers and mentors to enhance the program and support its growth and purpose. We wish Mrs. Baskin well in retirement. We hope that she enjoys many years with family, friends, and loved ones.
Thank you. And on behalf of the Board of Education, we thank our retirees for their 34 combined years of dedication to the students and the community of Marlborough. Wish them a happy and healthy retirement.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Page 51, Policy Development and Community Relations Matters. We have a bunch of policies for first reading. We have Bylaw 134, Board Self-Evaluation, Bylaw 152, Board Offices, Policy 2622, Student Assessment, Policy 3212, Attendance, Policy 4212, Attendance, Policy 5200, Attendance, Regulation 5200, Attendance, Policy 8630, Bus Driver Aid Responsibility, and Regulation 8630, Emergency School Bus Procedures. Just, Craig and members, before we get started, in order to have more board member participation in committees and specifically in this Policy Development Committee, in addition to Ms. Rosenwald, who's been on the committee since the beginning of the process, I've asked Debbie, Dara, and Craig, and they've agreed to join on to that committee. Craig, you remain as the chair of the committee, so please include them in all future along with Bonnie, in all future meetings or whatever.
Mr. Marshall, Mrs. Matos, and Ms.
And
Henny?
Mrs. Henny. So you want to, do we want to start off with 0134, sir?
Can I just ask you a
Yeah,
question on that? Since we have more people more board members to the committee, are we looking to have a minimum per seating, just so we know, if somebody's working or?
Craig follows the same process he would, who can make it, Now we have more board members, so it's more
So-
flexible that way.
okay.
All four don't always have to be there, like any committee.
Okay,
I just think it becomes more
I just
flexible
wanted
now, it's easier.
Clarifying it.
Okay, no.
thank you.
On that vein, what I think would be really helpful, and I don't think we have this as much anymore, aside from Cindy's head. Could you maybe let me know the days that are really good for you or not so good for you, so that we could have just a running tally, so that way I know, like, Thursday's not good for you, right?
Yeah.
So if we have that type of thing, it's okay. I mean, no worries. If there's a general day that's
11
great
to
or
4:30 is
doesn't
not
work,
good for her. We don't know her schedule.
But then
Yeah.
I change in the summer, so I'll give you that too.
Any day that ends in Y is.
okay. All right, so we're good. So Craig's good. So moving on.
Okay. Sir, do you want to just take them one at a time, or as you please?
Sure. So with the two bylaws, what I would just say is the big thing that jumps out with the first one, board self-evaluation, is that it's no longer mandatory. So that's a board bylaw, so I'm going to back out of the conversation for both of them. And I guess you would lead that discussion on what process you want to honor.
What are we?
Debbie has her hand up.
Yep.
That's actually my first question. What's mandatory in this? I actually would prefer for us to have board self-evaluations, and I hope the board agrees. I also do prefer that we leave the introductory paragraph the way it was. I really felt that it made it more transparent to show the public, now that we have everything online, and if they click on it, they know what it's about, and it's not just out there just to be out there. It makes sense now why you took out annually, since it's not mandatory. I'd like to see it going forward annually. And just as a little note, paragraph 3 is, there's a little typo there. It
Yeah,
shouldn't
I
be
saw
of,
that.
it should be or.
Okay.
But for the main part of it, that's my feeling on it.
So, you're talking about the strikeouts in paragraph 1. in total.
I
So what was the reason for striking it out?
It's from Strauss.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
it's
should.
just not
They take out
mandated
language
anymore,
that's
so
not-
they can strike out
You
whatever.
can certainly So what they do on the reval here is they cut out everything and they then bold what's new. So they took that out, just saying it doesn't need to be there, but you can unstrike the strike through. So if you want the whole first paragraph, which is a good intro, leave it. And if you want to do it annually, then you leave annually. And the only thing that we'd have to do then is to adopt an evaluation instrument. So we'd have to look into.
We do New Jersey school board.
We do, but do they?
Are they striking it since it's not mandatory?
Yeah, I
or
don't know.
So they're not going to have it online anymore.
What's that?
If they're not going to mandate anymore as New Jersey school boards, they're still going to have it, or you can.
Oh, I don't know. I can research that for you. Sure, I can look into it. But.
I can have Liz look into it, because she's been dealing with them and has it, so I can ask her tomorrow morning.
Perfect.
All right, so is everybody okay? Go ahead,
I
Jeff.
just have a question. I'll claim newbie status here still. Once we do this, what happens with it? Is it, because I'm wondering, can this become a useful tool for something? And I'm not quite sure, once everything is filled out, then what?
One from this year will be on an agenda. When will this, the one from this year?
May
It's done.
26th.
May
It's done.
26th. So it'll be in the May 26th agenda, and so for discussion by the board. We'll have copies of it, and
Right.
it's for discussion in public.
So the input will be,
It's there, it's compiled.
okay, thank you.
I just want to add, I think it's just great self-reflection.
Agree.
Agree?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm not on the board, obviously, but I think it's always good to reflect upon everything.
Okay, so is everybody okay with the changes that Debbie suggested? I'm
Yeah,
okay.
I don't see a problem leaving that paragraph in there.
Okay.
It's a very nice intro.
I think so too.
Okay.
Thank you.
152, board officers. Get that one. There we go.
I have a question.
Sure.
Are we there? Did you have any?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Last week, Mark Zenmer mentioned to me that we were one of the only districts that had term limits on board officers. Is there a way that we can omit the provision shall not be overridden? Just take that part out so it gives us more leeway, or are we a board that keeps term limits? He mentioned that to me, and that just brought it to my mind. I thought other boards had term limits, but he said that we're the only one on the president and the vice president.
You guys can do whatever you want. It's all policy, right? Correct?
You. That's right. It's your choice.
Yeah.
Was there a thought process that went behind that? Does anybody know? In terms of why it was put in there to begin with?
What I was told from past board member Cynthia Green that was on the board, that years and years and years ago, there was a board president that's here for many years, and they adopted that policy to change that at that time, for that reason.
Okay.
A long time ago. So you could leave it as it is. You could
Yeah.
leave it without the last wording, as Victoria suggested.
Which sentence was that?
The last one where it says, this provision shall not be overridden. Paul, would that be enough to, if you remove that, say we come up?
If I would say, I mean, I know you didn't ask me.
Yeah,
So
I did.
that last part, no one person shall serve as president for more than 4 consecutive years. So if that's the concern, then I would start the omission at no and end at overridden. And I think it's ironic that you're taking out the, I think it's funny, it shall not be overridden as we're striking it through. I think it's funny. But that would serve that purpose, and that way, I mean, the board president still have to be elected, as
Right.
would the
That's
vice
why I didn't
president.
You
understand.
still
would have
need
to-
the-
you
you
still
still
have to
need
be
the
elected.
votes. It's not an
Yeah,
automatic.
you still
Yeah.
need the vote, it's not an automatic.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you could strike the whole thing. You could strike this provision shall not be overridden, because you can override it.
Yeah.
You can override it any time by amending
Yeah.
the bylaw.
But there's no point in striking just
Right.
the last 6, or how many words.
Right, you
This-
should
the last
strike
two
the sentence
sentences.
before
Yeah.
if you want to eliminate it.
If you strike it, you
Strike
strike
the
it.
last,
Yeah.
the last two sentences.
Yep.
I'm for that.
Well, it's a little awkward for you to call for
Guys,
that straw poll.
I'm
So
being
why
real
don't
quiet.
Yeah, you
Why didn't somebody else call for the straw poll?
I mean, I wasn't
I'll
asking.
call for
just
it.
to clarify,
second.
I'm not asking this question because I'm worried about, I want to get reelected for, or whatever. It was just that, when Mark said that to me last week, he said it to a couple of us, that we were the only board that had term limits. So like Debbie and I were talking, I was like, if you have she goes, if you have a CEO, and we'll turn your words, of a company,
You don't turn over after
you
4
don't,
years.
just say, okay, well, 4 years, it's running great, but
Yep.
we need a new CEO.
Agreed.
You just, if they're not happy, I know there's pros and cons to it, because you could get somebody in that position,
Sure.
and that's another question I want to ask you. Say that there's a person in that position, and like Mike said from before, they didn't like the person.
You can vote anytime.
Well,
You just vote them out,
Anytime, right?
because it's the votes.
Well, it's not that clear. When you
Not
elect
vote
a
them out
president,
any time, it's
just not reappoint them, not
Yeah.
not vote them in for the next term.
Okay.
You technically cannot remove a president once you vote them in.
No impeachment process?
There's no impeachment process for board
Interesting.
president, unless they're incapacitated. If they fail to serve, then the vice president takes over. So generally,
But then you
there's
have
no
to elect
authority
the president.
remove.
That's just for that meeting. You
Right.
have to elect the president.
Right.
Right.
I think Mrs. Matos, why don't you straw poll it?
Okay. I say we strike those last 2 sentences. No one person shall serve until overridden. I also have a question. Forgot where it was. The first sentence, the Board of Education shall organize at its first regular meeting by electing one of its members. That's at the reorg meeting?
Yep.
That's right?
Yep,
Do
absolutely.
we need to state that it's at the reorg meeting, or is that always a regular, and is that always our first regular meeting?
That is the first regular.
First regular
Always?
meeting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Of the year.
Every year, every year. It's my most.
It's when Cindy takes, it's when Cindy
meeting
takes the
of
throne.
the year.
No.
Hate that meeting.
You have to take a poll, you have to ask all the board members.
I do,
Don't
not
talk with
you?
me to
because
do it.
he's-
Oh, because
President.
you're the president, I'm sorry. Does everybody
That's
agree
right.
with that?
Okay.
Take a poll, take a poll.
Craig? Dara said fine.
I'm fine.
I'm fine.
Michael?
There we go.
Okay.
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 Yes.
All right, so the next one is 2622, student assessment. This was revised due to a Department of Education memo that was disseminated. citing code that explains there is no opt-out provision for the state assessment program. So you'll see that language is included in the revisions, and also this policy, it removes any reference to an assessment by name in the event that the state assessment changes in upcoming years.
And this was it is verbatim from the October memo from the commissioner.
Yeah.
It's really what they did. Remember I think I shot you and we talked about the October memo that basically said that there is no opt-out. The Commission of Education sets the educational program. That includes state assessments. That what they've done is they've taken that memo and turned that into a mandatory policy.
Anybody questions?
You can't opt out.
But
You
can still refuse.
Yes. As of right now.
Which?
Until it actually goes for a vote in the legislature to see where that goes. And then if that's what happens, there'll be different implications.
It's
because,
just the wording.
yeah.
It's wording.
Yes, it's a refusal, not an opt-out.
So you're not keeping the first three paragraphs because it states in New Jersey's core curriculum, Common Core, and you don't want to name something per se?
Yeah.
Is that why?
Yeah, Strauss recommends that we don't, this way, if something happens and all of a sudden the park is replaced with New Jersey Ask again, you don't have to go back in and revise your policy. You're
But it's my
covered as a state
understanding that
assessment.
we could always open a policy to change it, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So, I just, reading over it, again, I thought that the first three paragraphs were really nice to kind of put it out there, because we're talking right now, we're talking today, we're not talking in 3 years when or if anything changes. So I personally would like to see the first three paragraphs stay, just to let the public, again, know why, has been designed to measure the extent. I mean, why do we have these assessments? And that was one of the major questions of, why do we have these state assessments? And if we're taking out the introduction of a policy talking about assessments, I think we're kind of, just sounding like, sorry, Paul, but like a bunch of attorneys. And we're not. We could always add the bunch of attorneys after the intro, and that's why we have the Strauss Esme. But I would like to see an introduction still with this, being that everything is online and people do look at it. And the ones after paragraph 3 in B, I thought 1, 5, 6, and 7 were very important. I wasn't thrilled about the other ones.
That's true.
But
Would you say 1?
1,
but you're
5.
not doing Common Core.
6, 7.
We're doing Common Core.
You're not making the assessment, the park assessment's being made by.
Yes. Park assessment is developed by Pearson, which
Right.
measures the Common
Yes.
Core.
One thing just to keep in mind, we still have some policies that are not pure Strauss policies, so to speak. So when we get our policy alerts from Strauss, when you see a policy that is just all a strike through and then replaced, that was because the existing policy wasn't a Strauss policy. And what they advise is you want to stay as close to what they provide service-wise, so that when they give you alerts based on code changes, your existing policy reflects current code. So everything in bold would be their language, but again, that doesn't preclude us from retaining the 3 paragraphs. I just wanted to give you that kind of
No,
background as to
yeah.
why there's so many strike-throughs in some of the ones that you're looking
No,
at tonight.
Yeah, I definitely saw that. That's why I said trying to find the actual statutes was very difficult and time-consuming.
Deb, what if we did this? What if we let Mr. Vaughn take a stab at a nice introduction for this?
Okay.
And we can table this one and we can bring it back. There's no issues with, doesn't need to go on tonight, right? Why don't you take a stab at a nice intro? I think we should stay away from picking and choosing from B. I think we should just put
Yeah,
them
because
in.
if you pick and
That's-
choose, like
that's
she
fine.
said,
I
1,
just
5,
want-
6, 7,
you
then
know, those
you
are the
have to
ones
keep-
that I
You're going to
thought
have to keep all the written
sounded
of all the
general.
exceptions, what
Yeah.
they are, you're going to have
So,
to keep all that.
Mr. Vaughn, why don't you take a stab at a nice introduction on student assessment?
Can I just, one more thing for 2622 and going on actually what Dara just mentioned. I think that we should add even a website or something regarding the parental refusal. I know that we don't have an opt-out, and I like that, Strauss Esme wrote it this way, and it's very clear. But that same token, you hear it all across the state. And I don't want people looking at this and saying, oh, look, we're not being transparent that there's a parental refusal at the moment, a form.
You mean the fact that we accept the refusals?
Or that that it even exists.
That's an option.
Oh, I gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That you can refuse, and this is what you need to do.
Or there is a
refuse.
policy for parental refusing according to NJSBA at blank. And then, again, if something changes,
The only
Then we
thing
change.
I would caution you on is that, and I'm only saying this because we're coming up for CUSAC, is that some of these policies, when they're mandated policies, they got to be pretty specific, and the language has to be what the state looks for.
And the other thing that I would caution on too.
So there's the mandated ones, you can't wiggle with and stuff, so you might not be able to put things in because the state wants, when they're mandated, they've got to say exactly
Yeah,
what they
it comes
want.
right from code. The other thing too that I think we need to be really mindful of is that there's going to be a very hard discussion about the districts that are egregiously over or nowhere near their percentages, the 95%. Now, we fell under that, but we weren't egregious. We were, I think, roughly in the 90%-ish range the last time that we officially tabulated. However, for school districts that are nowhere near that, they're going to have action plans, they're going to have individual meetings with parents, they're talking about loss of funding. I would just leave it as it is. Let that movement go all on its own, I would say, and we respectfully deal with a parent's right to refuse, and we make the child refuse as well.
Okay.
And that way they can't come back to us and say, well, in policy, you
That's
talked
very wise.
you talked about.
Well, the letter from Hesby actually said they were going to look to see how each district handled it.
Absolutely.
How they put it out there.
Yeah.
Did they publicize it?
Yep.
And how the superintendents handled it.
Absolutely.
That was the thing you gave us last week.
Yes.
that
Right.
We all
Yeah.
got, so.
And we dealt with everybody respectfully, and we did, I think, a very nice job with it.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm okay with the intro paragraph. I like that.
Okay.
Okay. Moving on to, we good? Moving on to 4212.
3212 and 4212, I'll lump them together since they're almost identical. 3212 refers to attendance for teaching staff. 4212 is attendance for support staff. These were updated primarily to address two questions. A pure definition of sick leave, and then the superintendent's right to require a physician's certificate in order to obtain sick leave. So this this was driven out of 18A, and both of these policies now reflect that, a very clear and concise definition of sick leave and an explicit language regarding superintendent's right to ask for a doctor's note.
I don't think
And that falls in line with standard practice that we've been following anyway.
I would leave these two alone. Mandated attendance policies.
Very good. Okay. 5200?
5200 is student attendance. This one has been a work in progress for a few months. Mrs. Rosenwald and I, we were up to our elbows with this one, primarily to try to hammer out some understanding of language in this policy and regulation that spoke to when a student is considered present for a full day versus a half day versus not at all. So one of the big things you'll notice is that the new policy is much slimmer than the previous policy. The previous policy was almost a regulation. It included a lot of language that really just wasn't necessary in policy. stepped outside of the actual code and statute and into, well, here's how we're going to deal with it, but the how we're going to deal with it part is in our reg. So now our policy is a little bit more precise, and our regulation is a little bit more robust. You'll see that in that regulation, we do have minimum hours that a student must be present in order to be recorded present for the full day. And then we also have specific language per another memo that we received from the Department of Ed that talks about an excused absence versus an unexcused absence. We ran this one by Mr. Zinnerer and his associates, and he gave us the thumbs up after they investigated it a little bit deeper. So we're pretty confident that all our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed with this one.
Sorry. I completely understand and I get it because, going back to look at everything, it did look like a mirror image in a sense between policy and regulation. But at the same time, when the regulation is how we're supposed to deal with it, the question remains, what is it? And if it does not exist in the policy and you tell a parent, oh, go into the attendance policy to see, it doesn't exist any longer. So what does a full day mean? Now they have to go into the regulations? Are we going to have to clarify that? Do you know what I mean? If you're saying how are you dealing with it goes into the regulations, and the policy is supposed to kind of explain X, and then you get Y out of X. So I think X is missing.
Okay, do you want some definitions built into the policy?
I think that it's just not clear. If a parent goes on to say, how many hours does my kid have to go to school? Oh, let me check the attendance policy. Click, click, click. It's not in the policy anymore.
Okay.
So now, are they going to know that they have to go to the regulation to find out, well, now they're going to be counted absent because they were in school for 3.5 hours, not 4. That's the regulation. The policy, I think, my opinion, again, I'm not an attorney, I think the policy should state, what is it that we're regulating? I don't know. That's my opinion, guys. Anyone?
If it's just the hours that you're talking about,
Yeah.
essentially.
I would say hours and
it was all
days out of school,
What is the attendance
right?
policy?
The 10 days out of school.
Well,
Paul.
the policy, you can do it either way. Either way is fine. Generally, the policy statement is a very broad statement of general policy, and the specifics go into the regulation itself. So I don't have a problem from a legal standpoint if it's not in the policy, as long as the regulation is available to people and they can look at the reg to get the specific details. You don't have to establish it in policy per se if the regulation sets it. On the other hand, there's nothing wrong with setting it in policy. The only trouble is then you have to amend your policy if you change that again in terms of that. So either way is fine. I don't have a problem the way it's written, though. I think the way it's written is fine.
You just have to advise the parents that they need to go to the regulation.
When you get questions, don't the parents say, they say it to me, that's why I'm asking. Don't the parents say, where's your policy on this? I've heard that so many times.
Typically, I don't get a lot of questions on the attendance that come to me at my level.
It's probably
Yeah,
school principals.
but going back to being a principal, I did get questions on it, and some people could be confused at the concept of a policy versus a reg. So I would think you have a couple options here. First option would be leave it alone, and we'll update the website to do all this, and then do a blast. Second option could be take the small chunks that are really the most essential pieces, i.e. the days and the hours, and put that as an asterisk or a bullet or whatever it may be into the policy, and that way it's in there.
Or C, maybe just even point them to the direction of the regulation itself?
Sure.
Is that even possible, just to say, for more specific?
They can pull that up at any time.
I don't know, just.
When they go in, and this is one of the advantages of having the new link on our website, when they go in to search policies and regulations, if they click on this attendance policy, they'll have another link that says to regulation, and when they click on that, it takes them right to the reg. Now, they've got to know to click on that regulation and see it. So if you want language
A lot of
that
parents don't.
Yeah, they don't.
point them in a, I'm more than happy to embed language that says that.
The regulation covers it.
Just a question. I'm hearing the benefit of putting it in. What's the benefit of not putting it in? What's the benefit of doing it via a link, which I agree a lot of people don't want to sit there and surf and they get confused as to what page they're on and getting back to it. So I guess my question would be, I could see the benefit of providing some definition to detail, but is there a benefit to not doing that?
I mean, it's really six, half dozen the other, because some people will know to go to the regs, some people won't. By putting it into the policy, you do make it easier. People typically, when they speak, I don't know that the average person will understand the difference between what a policy and a regulation is, but they do use the word policy.
They use policy.
So I think the easiest thing is that you could simply take the very few key details from the reg, insert it into the policy, and if it doubles up, there's nothing wrong with that, right, Paul?
No.
I mean, and that way it's easier for parents to understand, and then we have an attendance spot right on the webpage. We'll update that as well. And then I think that's just easier. And then then they can always toggle, but if they don't know how to toggle, they'll get to the policy and they can see everything they need, i.e. the 4 hours,
Right.
number of days.
You're giving them enough information not to read the whole regulation. That's really
Yeah.
what it is.
If they want to go deeper, they can go deep
Right,
dive.
it's there, but
Because they only have the one question.
That's
How
right.
long, how many days can they miss?
That's
And
okay.
if that's right there in the policy, then you stop the frustration.
Greg is so fast, he already has it revised right now.
Well done.
He's
So I
ready
guess it
for
was
the second
option B.
reading.
Yes.
We went with
you want to read that back to us
option
now?
B. We went with option B.
Lots of typing tomorrow. Okay.
Sorry.
So do you want to have just, well, all right, let me real quick, we'll go over 8630. And these, just so you know, I had our transportation administrators review these thoroughly, and then I met with both of those ladies to go over the language changes. For the most part, 8630 includes some new language that speaks to pre-employment requirements, as well as some training and inspection regulations that all of our drivers must attend to. And then Regulation 8630, some more similar updates per administrative code. That's really the main thing. This is very much aligned, not very much, perfectly aligned to our procedures. That's why you'll see a lot of the language that in other districts, in a generic form of this policy and regulation, a lot of the reporting procedures require drivers to go directly to a principal. Here in Marlboro, the drivers report directly to Mrs. Walker or Mrs. Holland, and they then communicate with principals.
Questions? Anyone?
Yeah, it was just, I can't find it though. Give me 1 minute, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Maybe it's on the regulation, I think I put under the wrong one.
It was wording.
Yeah, it was page 2, number 2, does that make sense? Let's see. Oh, number 2, here it is. Just for wording, for consistency reasons.
Policy or reg, Deb?
Reg, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I noticed that you changed the exit fire drills. What is it?
Page 202?
Okay,
Or 204?
yeah, page 2, number 2. I noticed that the rest of the policy and regulations, you changed it to emergency bus evacuation drills instead of bus exit drills. So you just for consistency purposes, you forgot
Switch that one.
to change number 2, if you want to keep it
Oh,
consistent.
Emergency exit versus bus exit.
Versus evacuation emergency drill, right, no exit.
So we'll change that to read, school bus drivers and bus aides shall participate in the emergency bus evacuation drills.
Right, just to keep it consistent instead of the exit. What did I write here? G. Oh,
Encourage.
G. Encourage. I'm all for this, and I understand, but I have a problem with saying bigger and smaller.
Yeah.
Can't we just stick with encourage older students? Well, we could take this many ways.
Yeah.
Huh? I know it's small, I know it's silly, but it might not be silly in other ways.
Strike bigger and smaller.
Thank you. That's all, for me.
Should they encourage any students to help
That's
any
okay with
Well,
that?
the older student,
Well,
yeah.
older students are usually more.
Yeah, they've done it before in
They're
the.
more
Younger,
seasonal
littler, and
schools or
bigger,
seasonal.
and older or larger, so.
Yeah.
It's kind
Might
of,
take effect.
Your size
Might be
size
effective,
challenge.
and I want to
Keep it
stay away from that.
Anybody else? Okay.
So
So we had the two that you,
2622 and 5200 will come back as first reads on May 26th.
right,
Everything else, you'll see as second reads.
but this changes that we talked about.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Right on.
Okay, final public session.
Do we need to discuss any other policy?
The,
Where's this addendum? We're going to go do that?
You'll do that in a few minutes.
Are we doing
that's,
this?
that's committee.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Policies.
Got it.
Mike, you didn't mention that. You didn't mention the policy that Mark Zinnerer gave us to review.
So Mark Zinnerer sent us the sample texting policy. So that'll be the first discussion for the committee.
So you're sending it because the procedure is going to go back
Back
to
to
the
the
committee.
committee.
They're going to review it, and then you're going to bring it back.
Yeah, it shouldn't come to the board to go to the committee.
Okay.
Right, as well, Craig, while we're on the subject, I would like the committee also to review the open public session statement, because we have to pick a time. Right now, it says the
3
board
minutes, 5
president
minutes, whatever.
picks what he wants, and I would like, no, to direct me properly. Do they want 3 minutes? Discussion went 3 minutes, discussion went 5 minutes. Everybody seems to want to be, whatever it is. So why don't we have, once you bring something back to the board from the committee on that, then the board could discuss it and change that statement to read, it's going to be 3 minutes, it's going to be 5 minutes, what it's going to be. So it's no longer, I got to pick a time.
Okay, so it's procedure that we take what Mark gave us and
Always
go
goes
to
to
the
committee
committee
first.
first, and then we come back as a first read.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, final public session, open to any item. Any member of the public wish to address the board on any item? Seeing none, I'll read the executive session resolution. Be resolved in accordance with the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act, the Marlborough Township Board of Education shall conduct a closed executive session pursuant to the personnel and legal exceptions prescribed by NJSA 10:4-12 for the purpose of discussing personal matters and negotiations with MIEA, MTOAA, and school monitors. Essentially, the time executive session will be 30 minutes, and the action will not be taken in public executive session. Be further resolved, the minutes of executive session will be released and need for confidentiality according to NJSA 10:4-12 no longer applies. That's seconded by Victoria. All those in favor? Aye. Anybody against? I'll make a motion now to adjourn the executive session.
No,
Second.
no, we got old business.
You've got old
Oh, I'm sorry.
business. You've got two things yet.
That's usually it's the other way around. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Rolling, I like it
I
though.
won't think
Who
about it.
did the
he's-
second?
All business.
Yeah.
Vicky.
Vicky, you did, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
I'm sorry.
You're all good, sir.
I'm sorry.
I like your.
Thank you.
I like your-
Well, you know why? Because look, public session's here, and it's here again.
Oh, there you go. It's our fault.
Yeah, that is-
It's on there
I don't
twice.
type it, so.
Okay, 'Cause that's what I should have been. I should have done,
Yeah, I
okay,
agree.
that's why I was, okay.
I was
Okay, old business.
confused, too.
Anybody have any old business?
Yes, we do. You all have an addendum here for the minutes. Just to clarify, at the last meeting, we had minutes that Craig, that Mr. Marshall wanted amended, and that he made the motion, it was passed, and I was asked to verify it. I did go back and verify it with Mr. Marshall, and this is what has transpired per the tape. And so we are now bringing this forward for you to adopt tonight to the changes. And we put just what we changed in the old business here. That's it, just the section that was being changed, that's it.
So, Paul, how do we read this? So this is, when we read the minutes
This is all
of the
we're
last
changing.
meeting.
This is it.
We agreed to send it to Cindy, look at the tape with Mark, and if it was, with Craig, I'm sorry.
I
And
have
if
the whole
if
list.
the wording was proper, we would accept it. If it wasn't proper, they bring it back to us.
Okay, so
Now it's back
a
to
motion
us.
to amend the
amendment.
March 10, 2015 meeting.
Yeah.
But that was with the first paragraph that Craig, where did the second paragraph come from? Because that wasn't
It was
brought up
in
at
there.
the last meeting.
It was in there.
What was, this second paragraph with John?
It was in there.
It was where?
It was in the original minutes.
I oh, it was already in the original
Yes.
minutes,
The amendments
All
are what's
I-
bolded.
Yeah.
All
It was
I
in there.
added was
the bold,
the bold.
even in that paragraph.
That was-
Yes.
And who requested that this was put
Take a
in?
vote.
Because
Okay, no,
when,
that's
when Mr. Marshall said it, he wanted it up there, but it wasn't, it
Exactly.
didn't happen up there.
No,
I had to
second.
put it where it happened.
Okay,
So
understood.
that's where I was
That's
putting it,
one
where it
part.
happened by the tape.
That's fine.
Okay. So somebody needs to move this again, according to Paul, and someone needs to second it.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Just for the record, I'm not going to make you change it, but Gian Cal didn't call me Mrs. Dean. She called me Gloria 3 times. I don't know if you need to write that in that minutes, that she called me the wrong name 3 times. I'm not going to but she did, everybody heard it. Right, Eric?
She called you Gloria.
She called me Gloria. I'm just, leave it as it is, I know.
Thank you.
But for the
Please.
record, I was not
How
calling
many
Mrs.
times did we listen to this yesterday?
Did you hear her call me
You didn't
Gloria?
hear
Okay.
Listen to it.
Well, first I need somebody to
I-
push this
yes.
motion.
Can I make the motion? Sure. All right, I'll
Thank you.
make the motion to accept the re-amendments as written.
Okay, seconded by Victoria. Any further discussion on the resolution to amend March 10th, 2015 workshop meeting minutes? None? Cindy, please call the roll.
Thank you. Mrs. Matos.
Yes.
Mrs. Ennie.
Yes.
Mrs. Dean.
Yes.
Mr. Marshall.
Yes.
Mr.
Gloria
Lulansky.
said yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'll tell you, you guys made,
I had
This-
15 calls last night from drivers. I slept 10 minutes last night. So,
Come on, it's
okay,
time to go
where are
now. I want to get out
we?
of here.
New business, NJBSA Delegate Assembly, May 16th, discussion voting, resolution number 1, number 2 bylaws. Okay.
Where was this?
Does anybody want to discuss it? Resolution number 1 is the one that says that you don't wait for, you don't wait for January for your, you do it in November, right
In
after the
November,
election.
correct.
Election. So, can I
and,
get?
and let me explain what this all is, because I did have some people question how this works is that your representative, which is Mrs. Rosenwald at this time, she will go to the meeting, and she is representing the district. She is representing the Board of Education. So she will go there and represent us, and she will vote the way you direct her to. So this is what you are giving her direction on how she will be voting for and representing the district at this meeting.
Thank you. So, question on the first item.
Just a and that can actually be verified, that whatever direction is given, that it is followed?
Yeah, because there's a report that comes out then from, the minutes come from that meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Discussion, number 1. So, do you
So
clarify it?
Can you just rehash?
Want to
yours?
clarify it, Paul? Paul, you
Paul.
just had it.
Sure. Currently, as you know, we held the election in November, and then the board organizes in January at the beginning of the month. The problem is that creates a little window between the election and the organization when you have a lame duck Board of Education. And that can raise certain questions. What happened here with Lindenwold is there was an issue where they actually wanted to appoint the superintendent, but the lame duck board could not, because only the new board had the authority to appoint it, and it created a problem where fortunately it was not an issue for them because the board did not change, but it could have been an issue where they tried to hire somebody and then a new board could have actually pulled the rug out from under that. So what they've proposed that actually makes a lot of sense is that why do we have to wait till January? We have the election in November. Why can't we then have the organization meeting, within a few weeks after that election? So that's really what the proposal is that they've made, to change the organization date, or to at least ask the legislature to do that, and let us organize after the election instead of having to wait till January.
Didn't that really come from the way municipalities
Yes,
function?
it follows the municipal calendar, essentially. That's when they changed the November election, they adopted the municipal rule.
Yeah.
That has some ramifications in school districts that you might not have with municipalities that I don't think were really thought through at the time.
Checking buddies.
Well, if that's changed at that level, will that change eventually here at a local level? I mean, it will change throughout the district, not
If
just...
the legislature ultimately adopts the
If they
legislation, then
ultimately-
it would change here.
Throughout the
Yes.
state.
Yeah, throughout the state.
For those that have their.
For those that have
still in
November
November.
elections, exactly.
So if our election is, let's say, the first week of November, then in practicality, when would that newly elected board take over? Is there a, like,
Once
21
the-
days kind of a thing, or?
It would actually be once the election results are certified. so that as soon as the certification occurs under this proposed legislation, at that point, there would be a period of time within presumably 2 to 3 weeks after that, that you could hold the organization
So
meeting.
like the 1st of December is when you're probably looking.
Probably, yeah.
Because you wouldn't have it at the end, because you got Thanksgiving, so you're going to be off. So
Right.
you're probably looking at the 1st of December.
First week in December,
First
right,
meeting
yeah,
in
first
December.
First Tuesday meeting we have.
Which is why I was asking about our policy stating the first
It's-
regular meeting of the,
It would still be
of
the
the
first,
year.
it would still be the first meeting, because the first meeting really
not
is.
of the year.
Well, we could change that policy if we need
Yeah.
to change that
Right.
policy if this change.
Yeah.
That's just semantics of changing.
But right now, it's not anywhere near that because it's got to go through its steps.
It's not going to be this year.
No.
Even if it-
Oh, yeah, this is at least a year away, maybe
Exactly.
more.
What'll happen is-
It has to get adopted if it ever does, so.
And Strauss will catch that, and they will come
And they'll
back, and they will come back
blast
to
it.
us as an alert, and it'll say, if you are a November election.
This is really more a matter of, are we at this point willing to support this concept?
I guess my question would be to the administration on how you feel it would affect you when new board comes on. I think, with,
I think the sooner that you get a board member in place, the better. I
Yeah, I
mean,
think it
why
makes
make them
perfect
wait
sense.
2 months to jump on? I mean, Craig's really the newest member, right? And Dara? What did,
When you think about it, you got people that didn't get reelected. Now they're sitting here for 2 months knowing they're done. Not
Yeah.
everybody has that enthusiasm that I'm going to come for. the
plus,
next
they,
meeting.
they may not be there, like Michael just said.
I think the one thing that would help would be to get them on sooner from a budget perspective, because when you come on, like, if you're not
January, go right
sitting
into
here in
budget.
January,
No,
if
it's a
you're
good
not
point.
sitting here, like, you've come and
And I
sat
came
through
before
meetings
also.
and stuff, but if you're not involved and you're newly elected, and you're coming here in January, and come February, when I give you your budget binder that's 3 inches thick, you're like deer in headlights. It's like, okay, so now what do I do? So, and then going through all the discussions, it's tough. So the sooner you get on and learn the acronyms and stuff, so, but
Good to me.
Yep.
other than that,
I think it makes sense to do it.
You're good?
Yeah.
yeah, I'm good.
Good.
At least-
We're all good. So that's a yes. Want to explain
So
number
vote.
2 first, sir?
Mrs. Rosenwald will vote yes for it,
I really-
right?
Yes.
Which one's number 2?
What was number 2, Cindy? Can you remind me?
Bylaws?
My mind is,
Voting resolution number 1 in the 2 bylaws.
Delegates number, officers' qualifications and election.
I don't have my reading glasses. I forgot. So I'm not another one of those.
Reading glasses?
Not good for me.
Don't judge me. I'm blind.
no.
It was an email. Send it in an email.
When is that meeting that she has to go to?
16.
All right, this deals with what happens when, what happens was an issue arose regarding an officer was recommended for election by the nominating committee for the officers of the association, but was not reelected to the board. And so they ran into a problem where they decided to examine the consequences of holding officer elections in May instead of November. So what they did is they looked at a variety of processes and presented 3 scenarios, 2 of them holding the officer elections in November and the other one holding it in May. So let's see what they did.
There's an email.
I know.
I didn't print it.
All right, they're recommending an option, the 3 options are looking at this option. What they're suggesting is that the officer election should be moved back to May. Hold the election going forward in odd number years instead of even numbered years as currently required. So the next election of officers would take place in May 2017. So that's a cleaner process, basically. They're going back to the past procedures that they used to have. It avoids the lame duck period from November to December 31.
So it's tied to the first one.
Right. It addresses the concern that the board members might otherwise be interested in running or preoccupied with local elections in November. And since the elections would take place in November of 2016, they recommended moving it to May 2017 to push it back a little further. And then they also note that the May election fits better with the County School Boards Association election time frame. So that generally, they're recommending a change to the bylaws to accomplish that. So
Seems
what-
to be tied to the first one, right, Paul?
Yeah, exactly. So the current officers were elected in November 2014 and are going to serve right now until November 2016. What they will do is extend those terms to May of 2017 if this is adopted, and then in May of 2017, we'll hold the new elections. And then they'll serve a 2-year term until the following, so May of 2019 will be the next election. So this really just goes to the, the structure for the delegate assembly officers. That's really what it amounts to. It actually makes sense.
So the base year, they're increasing the term by about
By
6 months.
By 6 months.
Sounds great, yep.
You say it's going to make sense? Makes
Yeah,
sense to
it
me.
makes sense. I know it sounds confusing.
So I guess it's yes to both.
Yes to both?
Yes to both.
Yes to both.
Got it.
Anybody else have any new business? You say
I
yes?
said yes.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Typo, Deb?
No. Typos.
That came raring to go today.
I know.
Is it more?
I told you I had a
How
lot.
many Rice Krispies this morning?
Not enough sleep. I have it in one of the notes. Oh, here it is. It was actually for Cindy. I had this for last week to ask you, and I forgot. And I don't remember if it was in our notes or email. I apologize, I didn't write that. But there are 2 new grants that were available through NJSBA's Grant Support Service programs. And I just wanted to ask if this is something that we look at, or you look at, the Comprehensive School Safety Initiative Grant. It opened in April, and they said that the deadline is June 12th. It goes on and on, but it could support technology-related infrastructure and meeting different goals and developing knowledge about what works, makes schools safe, and so forth. And then there was one more. It was called the Youth Build Grant. Did you hear about any of these coming?
I
to
didn't
us?
hear about the youth build one, the other one I did.
Okay. That comes from the U.S. Department of Labor, and that also opened, I don't have the date, but I think that was also in April. And that has a June 5th deadline. I know that doesn't leave us with much. But it says, just briefly, this program could support technology and related infrastructure and meeting programmatic goals related to community-based alternative education for youth. I don't know if that's something that fits us, but the thing that struck me on that one is it included children with disabilities.
I'll look into both of them. The one I briefly looked at the one for school boards, and I was gonna, it's on my desk to look into further. The other one I'll look at. By the sounds of it, I don't think we're going to qualify.
I didn't think so either, but once I read disabilities, I was wondering if there's
doesn't-
anything mixed in
No,
with special
because it's
education.
U.S. Department of Labor, we're like too high on the food chain.
Okay.
We're
But when was the deadline? April?
No, June.
No,
They're
June,
both in
June 5th.
June.
Because we, our socioeconomic
Yeah.
status, we
That
have a
disability
snowball's
thing
chance
threw me in.
in you-know-where.
Okay.
But the other one, it's on my list to look at.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Anybody else in the business? Okay, seeing none, we've already had our public session. I'll make a motion to adjourn to executive session, seconded by Debbie. All those in favor?
Aye.
Against, no? We
Monster.
are adjourned to executive.